Hi everyone, it's time for scenario number 4, the Unspeakable Oath. Our scenario reviews are going very well. I hope you're enjoying them. Super Fang, how are you doing?
Great. Yes, I'm excited to talk about this one. This one might be a long one. There is a lot to talk about.
Strap in because, well, it's the Unspeakable Oath. We're visiting an asylum. Strapping in is something that you might have to do.
Very nice.
Here we are. There's so many things on the table. Where do we start? I guess we do our normal walkthrough, right?
Yeah, so we're going to Arkham Asylum, classic location. Um, it's a couple things. Yeah, okay. So first of all, if you interview Constance, you get this is so weird. You get an asset, a courage asset with zero cost, no icons, and two sanity. It's just extra horror stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Although I
So
do feel like it's somewhat confusing. I feel like someone could interpret this as like, oh, you better like keep this alive or something, right?
yeah, it's a face down card and it's one of your cards, and when it gets defeated it just goes into discard pile.
I've had
So,
I've had it one time where my courage asset was my flamethrower, and
oh
I was
no.
sad it went to the discard file. So,
It's good when it's a weakness.
and yes, absolutely. Um, all right. Anyway, so yeah, we have a big map. We get a couple of randomized locations. So we have the Western Patient Wing and the Eastern Patient Wing. I believe, well, I guess let's just quickly look at them. Yeah, well, like one of them's good, one of them's bad.
Yeah, and you choose, without flipping them over, which one to start at.
Correct. And that's individually, I
That's right.
believe,
Yep,
right?
each investigator could start at a different one.
Yeah, that's the first time they did that. That's cool.
Okay, so this one, no clues, but you get to draw a card if you defeated a lunatic enemy or
Yep,
possessed. This one lets you automatically evade one of them, which is
that's pretty
pretty
nice.
good. Yeah.
Yeah,
So not having the clues there, I think, is a little annoying, though. The bad
it
one
is.
has the clues, plus one
Yeah.
horror value. That means that when they attack you, plus one horror. This one, oh, actually, I think this is a good thing.
Oh, I guess so. Well, it depends if the horror is good for you, right?
I love the horror.
Yeah, you like your resources,
I
I
like
guess.
the resources. Yeah.
I'm like rolling banks. I'm like, I don't need more money. I promise. Um,
And you bring Carolyn Byrne here, and she's like,
that's
yes.
three money.
It says
That's pretty
Carolyn right
nice.
on the card.
That is true. Hey, was it hinting to? Oh, actually, was she already out at this point in book form? I forgot.
Not sure.
Okay, it's possible. Anyway, yeah, it is nice to get the clues because you're gonna need some clues at the beginning, and it's good to get them as fast as possible.
Yep. So the first thing you're supposed to do is get a lot of clues, three per
Yeah, three
investigator.
per.
And your
Um,
options about where to get them is basically limited to these two locations and then the ones that are directly adjacent to them.
yes. For clarity's sake, I'm gonna remove these two just for showing this off.
Great.
Also, you'll notice in the kitchen, the garden, and the basement hall, the door is locked. I believe for all
Yep.
three. Yes, so you cannot go there. Also, these ones don't exist yet.
All right, so let's look at the other three locations to get our clues. Let's start with the yard.
Yeah,
I like to go here first.
I absolutely do as well.
So,
Most likely, you won't have horror on you, which is one.
exactly. And, maybe even one horror is okay.
Yeah,
And you maybe have that courage asset if that's where you're putting your horror.
that's
So,
true.
pretty low shroud location. And there's this other weird thing here that says something about inciting a fight amongst the patients. What do you think about this being in play before you know what it does?
Yeah, so it's always unfortunate because like my group was able to intuit very quickly that we're like we should probably do this, right? Because why would they put this here? Um, but if you don't intuit that you should probably do this now, it may be annoying to do it later when you need to.
Yeah, it's funny because sometimes they do put things like steal from the box office
Yeah,
that you really shouldn't be doing, but in this case, you probably should.
yeah, and it's also only one damage, which is like not that bad.
Yeah,
If it
but
was like take three damage, you're like, maybe not.
but it is an action, and
Yeah,
actually, we'll talk about it later. But it is interesting that it is here because if you wait till later, it might not be bad either. All right,
that's
let's see
true.
what else we have.
Got the mess hall.
I hate it.
You don't like putting deductions into things?
I mean, if you have a spell or something that gets more than one clue at a time, that's great. Otherwise, bye bye cards.
Yeah.
Especially if you are the main cleaver and you're playing 3 or 4 player.
Yeah, I mean, this one is definitely. I don't know why. Like, I do a lot of clue compression builds, so like this one rarely bothers me, or maybe just makes it so that like this is the location I save my deductions and fingerprint kits, etc. for,
Mm-hmm,
um,
mm-hmm. Yep,
just to
definitely. A
maximize it.
little bit of rules clarification though. If you do commit, say, a perception, and that's the last card in your hand, you do not discard any cards because this happens
Correct.
in step 6,
Yep.
and you draw your card in perception in step 7.
Yes. Additionally, because this is forced, this would happen before LCC triggers.
That is true.
Yeah. So
But
that's
the
nice as
cigarette
well.
case will still
Yeah.
draw your card.
Yep.
And if you are using read the signs, then nothing happens.
Right. That's true. This is like this is inverse haunted.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Anyway, so yeah, it is victory one though. That's nice.
Yep. And a lot of clues, so you do need to get
Yeah.
them.
Yep. I always forget this one is victory.
Yeah, it's kind of off in the corner, right?
Yeah. I like
It,
sometimes for time I never go there, but
yeah,
you know.
it's not on the way to anything else, but it's an interesting ability, right? To
Mhm.
basically move your horror or damage around.
I never find this worth it. Like I usually for like the damage horror trade-offs, I try to do at least like a 2 for 1. Like if it was heal 2 damage take direct horror, I'd be okay with that. Or if it was fast, or I mean a free triggered ability. I mean, um, I feel like it'd be more worth it. I rarely ever take this. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, otherwise it starts to veer into like Lily Chen territory where it's a
Right.
straight up benefit.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're kind of concerned or you've already taken too much horror or damage, maybe it's a good thing, but probably it's there for the flavor.
That's true. It'd be interesting if it could do it on ally assets. That would be interesting.
Ooh.
Mm.
All right, so you've gotten all your clues, so time to advance the act.
Yeah. However, maybe we should talk about the agenda because by the time you get the clues, this probably will be happening as well.
You're right.
Two doom on this agenda,
Mm-hmm.
and when it flips, we will shuffle the encounter discard pile and the set aside lunatic/possessed enemies into the encounter deck. So that is these 3 enemies. 2 of them we've already seen, but this one is specific to this encounter set.
Yeah, this guy spawns right in the middle, right here, one of these two locations, whatever's nearest to you, and really annoying when you try to attack, you get a horror anyway.
Yeah. Luckily,
So,
only 2 health, so
yep,
hopefully
eight.
you only need to do it once. But if you need to do it twice, that's an issue.
Yeah, last time I played this one with Mark Harrigan on the team, this just killed him basically
Damn.
because he
All right.
kept having to, take fight actions. They kept spawning, and taking a horror every time was not
Yeah,
his friend.
that's tough. And then we get to this. So the lead investigator must randomly choose an enemy from among the set aside monster enemies, place it beneath the act deck without looking. So we've shown them all here, but these will have all been in one deck, and they will be shuffled together, and one will be placed underneath the act deck without knowing which one. Um,
Yeah, there's 7 of them, I believe, right?
yes, I think we'll go over these later, but they're all huge.
Yeah, and I find like when I've played this one somewhat recently or just on the channel, I always forget exactly to do this or to track it properly.
Hmm.
I don't know why, because part of it is that this happens a few times. There's a token that does this as well, a
Yeah,
couple of tokens, but then the behavior of this effect changes partway through the scenario.
yeah.
Anyway, okay. So then you have enemies in the deck. The first go round, there's no enemies. Am I correct?
Except for
Oh,
some
there's the
roaches.
roaches. The roaches are here. Okay.
Yes,
But
which
there's
aren't
just
really that bad.
2 out of a lot of cards.
Yeah.
Okay. But after a couple of rounds, you get a bunch of things that might pop up and attack you.
Yep.
Okay. So you get your 3 or 6 or 9 or 12 clues, and then
Already a very flavorful interlude occurs. We're gonna need to get some keys. You got to test one of those stats with difficulty of 4, or you could take the keys by force, which does have some ramifications later on, I believe.
it does.
But yeah, if you basically it's like you choose like, okay, we're gonna try the fist one. If you succeed, then you get to keep going. Otherwise, you have to choose one that you have not chosen. Um,
Yeah, I think this is
yeah,
fun. It's a lot easier with a full group, of course,
yes,
because someone should have that stat be a good stat,
yes,
and like auto failing it doesn't mean anything. You just move on to the next person.
yeah.
In 2 player, I mean, again, you get to try again, but it's you've less choices, I think, or less bullets in your ammo in your hand to try to pass the test.
Yes. Um, Real quick, what happens if you took it by force? Is that a thing in the next scenario, actually?
No, it's the resolution for this one. If
Really?
you Yeah, well we'll talk about it when we get there.
Okay, okay. All right. Yeah, anyway, so now you can go and you have unlocked the locations with your keys, ignoring the text on the unrevealed side of Arkham Asylum locations. I believe that used to be just locations, right?
Yeah, so now, oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, also, sorry, we didn't do this. That's right. If you took the Onyx clasp or not, you get a
oh, the
different version of
setup.
this act.
That's right.
Yes. So there's two versions. If you took the Onyx clasp, you will get V1. If you left it behind, you get V2. Um,
Okay.
they
And there's
both have the
just
same objective, which is to find Daniel Chesterfield. So yeah. So now that the locations have been unlocked, you can enter the garden, kitchen, and the basement hall. Do you want to do these? Do you want to do the garden kitchen now, or do you want to do them later?
yeah, I'll do now.
Okay. So quickly, let's start with the kitchen. So you could set the kitchen on fire if you want,
Yep. So
which is the
more
thing,
clues here, but you're not really told why you need clues. So
correct?
there's that, and you're not told why you need to set a fire. But
Indeed. This garden, you can distract some guards. Let's go foot test.
mhm.
Finally, there is the basement hall, and it spawns four set aside patient confinement halls, which are these locations. And they're all connected to that, like that.
So it did tell you on the act, whoops, to find the patient confinement location
Yes.
with Daniel Chesterfield. So you probably are guessing. Well, do you know? No, you don't know per se, but the artwork kind of tells you that the confinement hall is probably going to be down through the basement.
Does make sense.
Okay. Four
Uh,
Shroud, and there's Victory
Four
here
trap.
too.
Victory is pretty nice.
Okay. In
All
order
right.
to get into these locations, you have to spend one of your own clues.
Correct. Meaning that in true solo, that's a lot of clues.
Hmm. Yep.
um, but yeah. Anyway, shall we go through them?
Yep.
Let's go with this one first. Familiar cell. You can test brain X, where X is the amount of horror on you. If you succeed, you recall the way out because maybe you've been here before. I
Yeah, that's
love that.
interesting. That's really interesting. The stuff on the
Yep.
walls too. Yeah.
Jesus. All right, we got the dreary cell. You can talk to a patient here, and you can know the guards' patrols because they've been here for a while, I guess.
Hmm.
You can talk to Wolfman Drew.
It's
This is unconfirmed, but I'm pretty sure it's the case.
got to be.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that in Midnight Mass, his flavor text has a thing about where he came from, right? I think
I don't
I'm not
remember,
entirely
but
sure.
makes sense. Makes sense to me.
Anyway, so yeah, you can release Wolfman Drew.
So there's three different locations here with something on them.
Yeah,
Plus they have a
five
clue.
five trout though.
Yeah.
Jesus. All right. Finally, here's Daniel's cell, and you will advance to Act 2B. Okay, so if you took the Onyx clasp, you'll get the second side of V1, and you will get Daniel Chesterfield, the asset side. Here he is.
It's me.
He's not doing all well. Yeah, that's right. Um, you can give him the control. You can give control of him to someone else, but his whole thing is that whenever you take horror, you have to do at least one horror on him. No, I'm sorry. If you don't put at least a horror on him, you take a damage. Um, and also, if he leaves play, then he dies.
Yep. And he takes up an ally slot.
That is true.
Sad.
So, oh, actually, I guess we'll talk about it later with this encounter card. But theoretically, you can take 3 damage off of one encounter card with this one, because of the new choose ruling for each or whatever. Um, so that's interesting.
Uh, Wait, say again?
Because this is the choice, right? You either take a horror or you randomly choose a thing to put underneath the act deck. Each
No,
horror is a different instance.
no, I think it's just either you take one horror for each point you failed by, or you
Oh, I'm
choose one
sorry.
enemy.
You're absolutely correct. Actually, don't know if then there is not an instance where that can happen.
No.
Good job.
They knew
Right.
what they were doing all along.
I guess so. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, uh, so yeah, that guy will show up, and the end. Basically, you're gonna have to resign with him. That's the whole goal of this.
Yep.
Um, However, we'll quickly talk about this. If you did not take the honest class, you get the enemy side, and he spawns in Daniel's cell. Jesus.
Crazy
Um,
art.
Indeed. Uh, not too bad of stats wise, but he might spawn at a bad time. Maybe if it's your last action, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it is very, and this is intended, but the action is if you control the class of black back Onyx, which you do not if this guy spawns there. So that is impossible to trigger, which is very, very funny.
It is, and it's so this is probably like the doubt version. So I don't know if there's anything about that, but it's weird. It's weird, but you're right. It's intended.
Yep. Okay, regardless, you're gonna plan the escape. So you need to have done 4 of the things to advance this one, aka the things that we've been saying, either inciting a fight or setting the kitchen on fire to escape the asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Funnily enough, very often either I'm one away from doing this or I have done it, and so therefore this will immediately advance. I don't know how often that happens for you, but
Yeah, it does happen. It kind of depends on like what order you run into these locations, right? If you go immediately to the patient confinement cell, then that's it.
that's
But
true.
if I go to the other ones, I try to do the task on it.
Yeah.
So
Actually, yeah, I will mention this version is the one that actually shuffles the enemies beneath the act deck into the encounter deck as well. This one doesn't,
that's correct.
which is interesting because when this act advances, you will then do it again. Shuffle the encounter discard pile and each enemy beneath the act deck into the encounter deck. And if at least 3 monster enemies were shuffled into the encounter deck by this effect, the uninvestigator will draw an encounter card until a monster enemy shows up.
Right. So if you have this one, then it's unlikely that you will be shuffling 3 monster enemies in.
Correct.
Yeah,
I've
this
actually
is
always
why
wondered, does this count the ones in the discard pile if they're there?
uh I hope not. I
It
think they're
says
not.
shuffled into the encounter deck by this effect, right?
I feel like the discard pile is still part of the deck, kind of.
Maybe. I mean, it does say shuffle the encounter discard pile into the deck.
Yeah, that can't
I've
be
always
intended. I don't think
considered
they
that.
want you to count the number of enemies in the discard pile.
I agree. It's also very rare for that to happen because they would have already been in the encounter deck. Someone would have drawn them. Someone would have defeated them, and then you have to do it again.
Right,
So it's very rare at least. And also, those enemies not have to not have victory, right?
right. So like
Or just
these,
discarded.
this is kind of why I get confused about like all what's happening with the monster deck.
Yeah.
Because like you're right, one of them makes you shuffle them in earlier than the other one. So
Yeah.
oof. Okay.
Oof.
Um. So then the last thing is all
Gotta
hell's
get out.
broken loose, and you got to get out. Indeed. So the garden will gain. If there is no ready enemy in the garden, you can resign, and you're good to go. So
Indeed. So this is different from Curtain Call because regardless if there is a ready enemy in the garden or not, there is a resign action printed on the card, meaning that I'm out of here will work.
yes.
It doesn't
However,
say while there are no ready enemies in the garden, it gains this. Right.
that's true. But there is another thing uh, that will keep you from doing this. We'll talk about that later.
Oh, okay. Wait, I actually don't know what you're talking about.
Another card that will keep you from using the ability.
Oh, yes. Yeah, of course. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. We can flip this over now.
Ah, I see. You got R2.
Mm-hmm. So this is if you took the keys by force from earlier. I think you get a physical trauma.
Correct. I think that's it, actually.
Yep.
Okay. Not so bad a punishment.
No. Okay. So this is like a slice of what happens in the scenario. We've kind of walked you through what you're supposed to do. You always are going out the garden. So usually you can go up to the yard, get one of these things, go do maybe the kitchen. You come down here to the basement hall, do 2 more of these things perhaps, and then you start to work your way out to the garden. If you know that's the way.
And
Maybe along the
that's why I
way,
rarely get to the infirmary because by the time I'm here, I'm like, okay, I need to get out right now.
yep, you're starting to run out of time. And yeah, the garden here does have one, so like you could theoretically just do everything except for uh, the fourth one being the distracted the guards,
Yeah.
and then this won't flip, right? Until
Yeah.
then,
That definitely is it feels like the expert play of you leave it until the garden and then you like have everyone be ready and then you do it and then everyone leaves immediately. You don't get any more enemies, etc. Like
right, the monsters don't go in.
yeah,
Yeah. Let's look at the agenda though, because that's another part of the story is that there's not as much time as you think. There's
indeed.
there's seven, so there's two in the first one, then seven, and this when you flip it over, uh, this one actually does get an enemy into the encounter deck.
Correct. Not from underneath the act. It's just one from the monster deck into the
Y-
encounter deck.
yes. Again, this is why I get confused. Some of them say shuffle in the encounter deck, some of them don't. Some of them
Yeah.
say, I think that this last one says, no, this is the last agenda. When you would place an enemy beneath the
Yeah.
act deck, instead it goes into the encounter deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, this will spawn Constance, and she goes to the garden, which is will be a ready enemy.
And she's huge.
She's huge, but she does have Hunter, so she'll come after you. You could kill her somewhere else, but it is
Yes.
important to maybe kill her in Last King.
This is why I always beeline for her to kill her.
Yeah, you don't need another monster in this one. We'll talk
No.
about the other big monsters, but man, this is like just not what you need here.
You draw this, you draw Dance of the Yellow King. She
Oh
comes
no.
all the way down to you.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah,
I've had that happen.
that's funny. Okay, so there's just so much that you have to do and get out in time. We'll talk about what happens if you don't. Should we do that now?
Sure, if you want.
Okay. So you run into, out of time because you decide to dilly-dally a little bit. Um, yeah, the walls close in and you are defeated. And you're like, sure, whatever. I've been defeated before. You go to the campaign log, and I know you can't read it, but there's a little bit of nice flavor text for the investigator defeat, which everyone who has been defeated must read first. Turns out that you have been committed to the asylum. You've been driven insane. Sorry.
Bum, bum, bum.
You need to pick a new investigator if you want to keep playing.
Yep.
There's a weird thing here. If the entire team is wiped through this effect, then any experience points that you get gets transferred to the new investigators. But if only one person goes insane, then their new investigator does not get any XP.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah. It's because it tells you to choose a new investigator before it says to
You earn the
get
victory.
earn the victory exactly.
Huh.
Yeah. And that's only R1.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
Of course, you don't get to go to a Lost Soul where you potentially earn even more victories. So
That's true.
yeah. But yeah, this is always
Uh,
this
oh
is
wait, yes you do.
definitely
It's on
huh?
oh no, you're right. It says skip it. Yeah, go
Yeah,
to
yeah, it's good.
scenario 5, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is definitely a notable point for this campaign is this scenario. If you die, you die. And
Hmm.
it's always fun when you having new players and you're like, yeah, I can get defeated, no problem. And you're like, yeah, totally. You can totally get defeated. No problem.
It's a good pressure point to be in scenario 4. There hasn't been anything like that, I don't think, that early since.
Nope.
Or yeah, so it's kind of interesting. It does tell you though that campaign is not over,
Yeah.
assuming you have more investigators in your collection. I don't know how that couldn't be the case with the core set, but you know, it says only you lose the campaign if there's no more investigators
Yeah.
left. Yeah.
I guess it's possible if you don't have the investigator expansion, perhaps.
If you just play the core set and
Yeah.
the campaign
Yeah.
for Carcosa, yeah, it's true. Okay. Um, it's fun. I mean, it's a cool thing to add here. It makes sense. It's just a
Yeah.
little scary, even if you know exactly what to do. It's like, am I going to make it out alive?
Yeah.
Have you ever been driven insane here?
I have not, I believe. No, wait. That's no. Yeah. I have never been driven insane here myself.
Yeah, me
Although
neither.
there
I've
was one
played
time
with
I did a
people.
standalone. That was it.
I have played with investigators who didn't make it out, and
Yeah.
it wasn't for lack of trying, but sometimes the game just gets you. It's usually with the hidden cards that we'll talk about in a second.
Mhm.
Okay. So along the way, you might add some of these monsters, and let's look at them because they're kind of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, first we have these Screeching Byakis. They were from the core set, so it's the first time that we've seen them show up. They are part of the Agents of Haster encounter
Yep.
set. We'll see um, the other one in a second that
Hmm.
goes in this set, but these guys are relevant because of Sanity 4 or fewer. Like, there's a lot of horror in this scenario.
I want to draw these ones. They have nice victory.
They do.
Sometimes I never draw them, and I'm very sad.
Yeah, that's a reason to not just like immediately resign. You want to draw some of these victory point enemies.
Yeah.
Hey, there's one more though. There's this guy.
Yeah.
I always draw this guy instead of the Screeching Byakis.
This guy's like a mini boss. It's crazy.
Massive. 7 health is like a lot.
Yep.
It is kind of fun to be ready for this guy though.
That's
Three
true.
fights not a big deal. If you have like, I don't know, your machete or something and then a vicious blow, you can get him in one turn.
Notably, if you decide to assign any damage to Daniel Chesterfield from his attack, he will just you'll just have to do all of it on him and he might just die. So potentially don't do that.
Oh, or you put it to your investigator card, right?
Of course.
Okay, okay.
But that means that then he will give you basically another damage then.
Right. You take two, three in one. Okay.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that's tough.
Just kill him.
Just kill him.
Okay, the Spawn of Holly. This guy shows up again later, but I actually think these guys are tough.
These guys I have also found to be very tough. They deal a lot of horror. That evade is very tempting, but you'll probably take a horror from that as well. They don't have Hunter, which is nice. Um, but yeah,
That's why you should evade them, right? Right?
right, totally.
Yeah, last time I had this guy spawn when I was at the garden,
Mm.
so I tried to evade him and then
Oh
auto
god.
failed. At
Oh no.
least I didn't take the horror, right?
That's true.
At least
Yeah.
not that point.
They are prime Kaimani targets though. They're
Oh my
perfect.
goodness. Yeah.
Perfect for them. No victories. It's perfect.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the other thing is like since you're more likely to draw these guys between like here and here, it's there's a lot of pressure, right? Because you
Yep.
don't want them to follow you to the garden if possible.
Yep.
Now, the one enemy that doesn't spawn up there,
Jesus.
I think like they just turned all the numbers up and then it's actually super soft.
Okay, so yes, cannot make attacks of opportunity, cannot make attacks while it hunts, but like it doesn't have massive. So if this is in the basement halls, how are you getting through it? You have to do something.
You shouldn't be here. You should be already like over here.
Right, but it like it's totally possible that this guy spawns here and someone is down here and they're just fucked.
That's true. That's true. If you can't evade him and then walk away, then it's a problem.
Yes. Notably
But
also, like you might be down here because it's taking a while to get back up because maybe you drew this hidden card.
No, not that one. This one.
This one.
No, this one. This one.
Yeah. One of
Yep.
them.
Okay, fair enough. There's two of these. We were talking before that Superfang, you didn't realize there were actually two of these Asylum Gorgers in the deck.
That's crazy. They don't even have victory.
No.
They're huge.
You know what would be fun with this?
What?
Power word.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So you could heal 3 damage, heal 3 horror. What's is power word combat for getting a clue? Is that right or is it health?
It's help.
Okay. They can get a clue from anywhere.
Yeah, pretty good.
Jesus. That's pretty good.
If you can spawn them early with you, have them cower. You just walk out with this guy. You can have him cower. He won't be a ready enemy at the end.
That is true. That is true.
I don't. Maybe not the best idea, but why not?
Not why not? Especially with the new taboo.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I love this. I think that the enemies here are a lot of fun. I agree. Like I want to draw the victory point enemies, but there's honestly a lot of victory out here on this scenario compared to the second and third scenarios of this campaign. So
Yeah.
there's the one from the mess hall, the infirmary, and then one on the basement hall, and then Daniel Chesterfield.
If you kill him.
If you kill him, well, the enemy side. And
Yeah.
then I think there might be some bonus XP at the end.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean the design of the scenario is very, very good because if these guys were all in the encounter deck at the start of the scenario, this scenario would be unwinnable. But because these guys are very like not even in the beginning, they're not even going into the encounter deck. They're going underneath the act deck.
Hmm.
And only near the end do they actually transfer from the act deck to the encounter deck, or via the last agenda, sorry, them getting shuffled in via the token effects or some of these other cards that might pop up. So it's kind of like you are putting the pressure on yourself, which is very cool both thematically and pressure wise, because it definitely feels like these guys really only show up at the end, and the scenario therefore like climaxes to this really tense moment near the end, and it's great.
Absolutely. Plus, if you have already played this one before and you kind of understand what the monster deck is doing, there's a lot of interesting pressure about, you referred to the token effects. So we didn't talk about this yet, but the
Yeah.
skull is like super easy. It's -1. But if you do
Yeah.
fail because you're playing like a, I don't know, low willpower rogue or something,
Hmm.
then you have to take one of those set aside enemies, monster enemies, and put it beneath the act deck. And you're like, okay, whatever. What's the big problem? Well, the Elder Thing token, which is if you,
Left the honest class behind.
so it's the doubt version.
Yes.
Okay. This one is a 0 or an auto fail. And it's
Right.
only going to be a auto fail if, well, you have to choose, right? But you cannot choose if there are no set aside monster enemies.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, how many times can I draw this Elder Thing token and choose it as a 0
Mm.
before I'm losing tempo by automatically failing tests? But wait, there's more. There's two hidden cards that we are going to talk about now that you can only get rid of. No, you can get rid of them no matter what, right?
What's that?
Can you get rid of these if there are no set aside monster enemies? You can, right?
Yes, because there's not a then comma.
Right. Okay. Because the cost is not, yeah. This is another way to add the monster enemies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. The cost is just to take the action.
Yeah.
It would be kind of scary if you couldn't
If you just
take
couldn't.
couldn't take this if there
Bye
weren't any
bye.
monsters. But yeah, it's that token. Yeah, so this one means that you cannot attack the lunatic slash possessed enemies, which is like okay if you are not a fighter. You can just
Yeah.
hang on to that. This one though, you can't trigger the action abilities, the activate abilities on locations. Well, there's a lot of those things to do, and there's one really important one, which is the resign on the garden. So it's not just the
Correct.
thing that's here, it's up here because it says garden gains that ability.
Yes.
So it's actually on the location.
I will say, I'm out of here. It still gets around it.
It does. There you go. There is a scenario card with resign ability in play. Yep.
Yep. And to be fair, I think that like if a rogue decides to take this card in the scenario, it's golden because it's this card is insane in this scenario, obviously.
Yeah, they should do it. I mean, if you have the ability to adaptable this in,
Yep.
you probably should.
Yep.
Okay.
However, yeah. Regardless, though, that's really tough for everyone who doesn't have access to that card.
Mm-hmm. So that's like another part of the timer here. You're like thinking about these decisions as it's going on. Like, when can I get rid of this? In order to, am I adding monsters in that's gonna, tick down the clock on the other thing? What are the other two tokens here? So the
Yeah, the
cultist is
cult
if
is
you,
if you took the Onyx clasp,
okay,
so that's conviction. And the tablet is if you killed the guy,
okay.
the possessed speaker.
I don't think those are too terrible. I mean, you don't really want the horror on you, but it can add up, of course, and then you're just like, these are -5s or something.
Yeah, ultimately they're just numbers. They don't have a bad effect associated with them, and that's totally achievable.
Yep, yep.
Oh, oh, the hard expert side of things if you fail. That's interesting.
Let me see. Oh, just give you more horror.
Oh wow, the tablet. Sorry, the Elder Thing token is unchanged. I've never seen that.
Wow. Well, I told you it was scary. That's the most recent playthrough I've done. I've done Doubt, so it's stuck in my mind.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the skull? Oh, it's reveal another token also. Okay.
Yeah. Which actually might not be the worst. I mean, it's whether or not that additional token is worse than a -1, basically. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm. Well,
you do get another -3, by the way.
if
Forgot to
you're
mention
on
that.
standard, yeah.
Correct.
I think on easy it's another -2.
Correct.
Yep.
So
-4 hard,
does
minus
not
five.
extend the floor of the chaos bag.
No.
Not yet.
Actually makes it easier to pass because you're not going to draw an autofail as
There you
often.
go. There you go.
Sure. Okay. We've got a couple other showstoppers here to talk about. We've got the straitjacket.
One of my favorite encounter cards of all time, just flavor wise.
It's great, right? It takes up the body slot and two hand slots. I think
Yeah,
it's
and it
ultimately okay because it puts those assets back to your hand.
exactly. There's ammo in the straitjacket. There's also charges. No, well, not charges. Sorry. I'm trying to think of a mystic thing. There's whatever. There's like some weird stones in the straitjacket, I guess. Um,
Charges on your enchanted blade.
exactly. There you go. Um, yeah, but also this can be also very brutal at some points as well.
Yeah,
Um,
if you're the fighter and paid 5 resources for your Cyclopean hammer, then it's kind of annoying. But
so
tried last time I played this to alter fate this, and then uh, one of the people I was playing with astutely read that it says this card cannot leave play except for by the ability below, and I said,
damn.
"Oops."
Oops. Wow. What happens if you have a bandolier? What two hand slots do you choose?
Well, the body slot, right, also gets returned.
Well, yeah, of course. But it says return each asset in those slots,
Oh, I
right?
see. So 2 of them have to go in the discard pile, and then the other 2 you can put back in your hand.
No, no, they don't, right? Because you're also removing two from your hands,
Yes, but
right?
I mean, if you have a bandolier, oh, I see. If you're just a bandolier with nothing other than like one weapon or something.
Well, no, no. Like you have, let's say you have level 0 bandolier and you have three weapons out.
Okay,
When you return the bandolier and the two hand slots back to your hand, you have a valid state where you have one item in your hand slot, right?
that's true. I guess you choose because like the slots are not like fixed.
Oh wait. Oh, but then the straitjacket also takes up a body slot and two hand slots.
Yes.
I see. Okay, so yes, you would have to discard one of them at least. I guess you just choose then. That makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah, you choose.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyway, that was a little
Little
tangent, but
tangent.
actually, I mean, there's other weird things, right? There's the Daisy Necronomicon problem, right?
Oh goodness. Yeah,
Where
the
you can't
straitjacket
leave.
has a pocket for your Necronomicon
Right, you can't. It can't
and
leave play. So
the King in Yellow.
and the King Yellow. Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a cool card. I think it's scary. If you know it's coming, then you are a little bit concerned. But good card to put into an Asylum scenario, right?
It is very fun.
Okay. The last one is actually not that big of a deal. We saw it before. Um,
Yeah, it is a pretty tough rotting remains in certain locations, especially if you have ooze and filth out.
mhm.
It's an additional horror, basically. But I will say a lot of these locations do not have more than 3 shrouds, so like it's not the worst thing in the world if it's just rotting remains.
It's also Rotting Remains with a choice, right? So
Yes.
you can just decide to put a monster in the deck if you have that option.
Yeah, nearing the end of the scenario, it might not be the worst thing to just put one in the deck, just because maybe you just won't draw it.
Hmm.
Um, Obviously in the beginning, it's like, we probably could have drawn this because it's gonna get shuffled in. It's a choice for sure.
Yeah, this isn't the worst one in the deck that deals me horror. I believe. I think there's
For
another
sure.
one that I'm more scared of.
Yep.
Okay, you mentioned Ooze and Filth. This Roach Swarm also deals with the Shroud. I think that
Yes.
this whole Shroud thing is more interesting in The Last King than this one.
I think maybe in what way do you think?
Maybe because there's more higher Shroud locations and there's that is kind of the main other mechanic. So this is only a couple of cards in the rather large encounter deck, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
Uh, and like you said, most of these locations have 2 Shroud. Two,
Yes.
two, one, but only more if you are investigating. So it doesn't even really affect this.
Yep.
Um, the garden has 3. There's the 1-5 location, and then this one has 4. I don't think it's that troubling, I think.
If you're investigating the yard and you have Delilah or Rourke, it will cost more money to ping the roaches if you have horror on you.
Maybe wait till you're done investigating.
Probably.
Taking the attack of opportunity from the roaches. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just exhausted or something. Sure. Corrosion, though, sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. And I think it's the same. Well, I guess it's kind of worse than the Last King, just because you probably have more experience in your deck. So this is more likely to get something bad, but
Agreed.
it's basically bad. Yeah.
Okay. This time, the hidden cards are bad.
That is
It's
true. I
not
mean, this one even more so.
even more so. You need to move
Yeah.
quickly.
Um.
The other ones, I
Yeah.
think, I mean, the skill card one is like as soft as it usually is, but I think that
Yeah.
there's so much more time pressure here that you don't want to spend the two actions ever.
I agree. That is true, and that's also why. I mean, okay. So I mean, I don't think these are so bad. Like the free triggered ability one, there's nothing inherently in this scenario that has that.
That's right.
I don't think so, at least, right? Yeah.
No, you're right.
So I mean, this is like it's about the same, but as you're right, like you have less of a reason to take the two actions just because time is so short,
Mm-hmm.
and also because Descent into Madness is here, losing actions in this scenario is much more detrimental just because there's not a lot of time.
Yeah. So it's at this point, the like we said before, like why does Descent into Madness become part of this encounter set? It's really because of the action loss.
Yes.
So yeah.
It is nice then to have the courage to soak. Make sure to do it so you don't have Descent into Madness problems.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. This one is part of the this one,
Correct.
and we talked about how it can be kind of bad.
Yeah, Constance all walks all the way down. It's really funny.
Yep.
Um,
Even with the mad patients, or I think it's kind
that's
of bad
true.
too,
Yeah, it is true.
because they're likely to not spawn with you if you're not in those locations. So this could trigger.
Yep.
And then there's the yellow sign. This is the first time we've seen it, and oh my god, this
You don't
is
like it?
it's scary.
I guess so. I mean, do you really have really bad Madness weaknesses a lot?
You know, not always, but it can be like you're not. I think I mentioned this to you before, but like Wendy,
That is madness. I guess so.
you're taking 4 horror.
I mean, she could probably pass this though.
She should try to pass it, but you know, sometimes bad stuff happens.
That's true. That's true.
There's other. I mean, it depends on the investigator, right? So some of them
Yeah.
innately come with madness weaknesses. If you've already seen your madness weakness and it's now in the discard pile, then you know nothing happens.
Yeah.
But
I feel like that happens to me more often than not. I don't know why. I obviously for this one, it gets more quote unquote impactful in the later scenarios because you have the other weakness that I can't remember its name right now.
Lost Soul.
Lost Soul, yes, and you will get that at the start of the next scenario. So we'll talk
Hmm.
about that. But that's usually what this targets, because like yes, you can get a like I guess if you get like paranoia and you lose all your cards or whatever. No, I'm sorry, that's resources, right?
Yeah,
Wait,
amnesia.
yeah, amnesia. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I guess if you drew this and drew into paranoia, you would be very upset with that. Um,
I mean, I
yeah.
spend my resources as soon as they come in, right?
There you go. Yes.
I mean, I see your point, but like it is a 4 test. It's not nothing for most investigators, and I think that the investigators that have a hard time passing this also probably have a hard time with their weaknesses in general.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess. Yeah. I for me personally, I always find the 2 horror to actually be more of a problem for the people who cannot pass this, just because it is 2 horror and that's very tough. That's usually how I feel. But I think you're right. In certain circumstances, the madness weakness itself can be the problem here. But yeah, I see that.
Well, I think it's really the combo. Like I said with Wendy, you're suddenly, you know, going along okay, and then you're taking 4 horror out
I
of
guess
nowhere,
yeah, I guess you are taking 4 or 5 if you're parallel
or
or
5.
advanced.
Hmm.
Oh god, yeah, this drawing the advanced abandoned alone is it's terrifying actually. Um, that might just kill you.
I think that's the whole encounter deck.
That is the entire counter deck. Yes.
Hmm. I mean, there's no real soft ones here. Like I think the walls closing in is the softest.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
hidden ones, I guess you just lose a couple actions, and
This one,
oh
Jesus
my
Christ.
god, yeah, you
Yeah, I
cannot
mean,
move. Hmm.
and I think ooze and filth is pretty light,
Yeah,
pretty soft. I mean, yeah.
yeah, that's true. Wow. Okay, we spent a long time talking about this one because there's just so much to say. I feel like we
Indeed.
must have missed something.
Uh, should we talk about Lost Soul, the interlude afterwards?
Is that really part of this one, or is it part of? Oh, it is. It is.
It
Yes,
is, yeah,
it is. I was thinking of the beginning of the next one, which also
for
feels
sure.
like an interlude. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So you've got three options. One, if you resigned with Daniel alive.
Yes.
Two, if you had the enemy version but you didn't kill him.
Yes.
Or three, you killed him, or this one also died, then he did not survive.
Correct. Regardless of which one you choose, obviously, you need to have reached a resolution in order for at least one of these to trigger. So, if you all died in the asylum, none of these happened. But
That's right.
assuming that someone got out, um, regardless of what happens, you will have the choice to either ignore the warning or heed the warning. But if you did get Daniel out and resign with him, I should say,
Hmm.
you get 2 additional experience, which is very nice.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what is his warning?
Indeed. So his warning is to not speak the name that which shall not be named, aka Haster. Don't say his name. Um, that's basically what he says. And by far, I don't know if you would agree. I think that this is by far what is, or I should say, is one of the things that makes this campaign really special. Because I feel like they haven't really done this since, or they tried it a little bit. But if you heed the warning, there is an IRL thing that happens. AKA, if you say the name Haster aloud during a scenario or during a set of scenario, you must take a horror, which is definitely one the thing that made me fall in love with this campaign because I'm like, that is awesome, right?
It's really cool. It's meta, but remember this whole campaign is about the investigators and you playing the investigators, figuring out if this is real or not.
Yes.
And this is indeed a conviction uh, moment, right? You mark two conviction if you decide to heed the warning.
Yes. I don't I've only ever ignored the warning once.
Just because it's too much fun to do it.
Of course. And also because they reward you as well to heed the warning because you get an additional experience if you do. Um
That's right. That's right.
because they want you to do it because of course they want you to do it because it's so awesome.
Well, the last number of times I played, I ignored it because I just go yeah, all in on doubt, and I just choose not to do the things that are doubt related.
Fair enough.
I will admit here that when I do conviction, I have never said his name.
Ah, I have said it a couple times
I know.
on
I think
purpose.
I know. I was going to say that it actually can be very helpful if you are a certain few investigators.
Yes. Um I mean very quickly. So obviously Agnes can take advantage of that. Um I just realized in the last scenario she could theoretically do it forever and just wait, is it limit once per round? It is. Isn't it?
Once per
Her
phase
of her ability? Right, okay.
hmm
Still. Um
to
but the
automatically deal damage to an enemy at her
exactly.
location. Yep,
The thing that I did was I killed a brother Xavier with it.
that's funny.
That was fun.
Just to deal two
Two
damage
damage to something, yeah.
to something that. So Agnes likes it. Calvin
Calvin, yep.
to a point,
Yeah, to a point.
and then Carolyn is interested in someone doing it, maybe her.
Yeah, I mean it's free money if she puts it on Pete if she doesn't have a thing to do for it this
Hmm.
round. She can be like, "Oh, I'll take one on Pete this round to get some money."
Yep. Anyone else that you can think of other than like player cards that help out with it?
If you have the Key of Ys,
Sure. There you go.
I guess that did come out in this cycle.
It did.
Um, uh, if you're going desperate, I guess
Those also
maybe
came out in the cycle. They're a
that
set of
is
skill
true.
cards that give you like what, four icons if you have three or fewer remaining sanity.
Correct.
If you have the tattered cloak,
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think those that stuff is kind of fun, and I like it in the game, but it's never been something that I actually sought out
Yeah, no,
as.
it's fine. I think it this definitely does work more flavorfully if you're trying to like if it happens accidentally. Like you're reading a card and his name is printed on the card. You read it and you're like, ah! Right. Those are like the best moments of this. And you're like, oh God, I forgot.
Oh,
Um,
but see, it's always me reminding my friends that they just said it. They said, "I did what? What? Why did I do that?" And then they,
yeah.
oh
No,
my
I
god.
mean, what I always do is we always have this thing where we replace his name with another name that starts with H.
Yep.
So we use Harry Potter, uh, H Bomber guy,
Yeah, I usually call him H man.
H Man. Yeah, yeah. Um, there's a good ones.
You could
There's good
call him
ones.
Voldemort, right? That's totally
Yeah, that's
fine.
true. That's true. That is true. Um,
It's fun, and it's also
it's
kind of
fun.
fun if you do pick doubt after having done this. You can just like yell Haster and say, "What are
Yes,
you gonna do to me?"
exactly. Which is a very doubt thing to do, which is why I love it.
Yep. So it's super cool that it's here. It's such an interesting idea to have a meta thing involved and have a game mechanic based around it. But um, yeah, I've never accidentally said it, or if I have, then no one ever called me on it. So it is fun to point out to my friends, like
Yes.
you just said it, and then like 30 seconds later they do it again. I'm like,
And
ah.
and I think the strongest thing about this is that it means that in real life I am hesitant to say this word because it's ingrained in me to not say it.
To say
Um,
what word?
no, right, yeah. Um, so again, it's perfect because it's kind of like this thing where it's like getting out of the game where it's like I don't even want to say his name out of the game, right? And it's perfect, flavorful, perfect. It's great.
Yeah, I agree, man. What a great scenario. Like there's
Yeah,
just that's a it's part of the interlude, and yet it adds so much to the scenario too.
yeah.
The whole
This
experience, man. It's really
yeah,
good.
yeah. This one this scenario is awesome.
It's one of the few where I can look ahead knowing that I'm going to play it, in the coming week or something, that I'm looking through my deck saying, am I going to survive this? Because it's meaningful, right? You want to get through. Um, I've definitely played very, tight games with this one where it's just like the last round getting out. I've also played where I was ahead of the clock and it was just went really smoothly, and it feels a little weird. I feel like it needs to be really stressful, but that's a discussion about like overpowered decks, I suppose. But in a normal playthrough, like it should be a little stressful.
Yeah. I will also in final flavor note, the image on this scenario pack is Charon's Opal, which is not an encounter card. Because normally the pictures on the Mythos packs were encounter cards or like act cards or whatever. It's a player card. And it's literally the perfect one they could have chosen.
It
And
is.
also, it's not in this Mythos pack or something. Is that right?
I think it's in Dim
It's in
Carcosa.
it's in Carcosa, but
I think it's in Dim Carcosa, or
is it
maybe it
really
isn't.
the last scenario?
Maybe not. Maybe it's in this one.
Hold on, I am looking it up right now.
Okay. If you're not familiar with this card, it is the permanent card, level 1 exceptional. And if you take it as a rogue, you get 2 extra XP at the resolution of a scenario. If you are defeated, instead you're killed.
Yep.
The end.
It's actually in Dim Carcosa, which is hilarious that it's in the last pack.
I don't know what rhyme or reason they were going with when
Yeah,
releasing these cards, but yeah. I mean, the fact that they have any level 0 cards and Dim Carcosa is strange, but the fact that they have a
yeah.
permanent one that
A
you
permanent
only
gives your experience.
that yeah,
Yeah,
to get extra experience is just strange. Be like giving you delve too deep in that one too, right?
right. Exactly.
Which one did that come out in? That was a Miskatonic Museum, maybe?
Yes, in fact, I remember because like the hunting horror is like in that card basically,
Yeah.
kind of.
Okay. Well, we've talked about this one a lot, but we'll talk about it for just a little bit more with our rankings. So we'll start with replayability, and I'm excited to replay this one. I'm not sure that it's super different every time because there's just always the one location to resign in. I've wondered before, would it be cool if they randomize which location to leave, like through the infirmary, the garden, or like the kitchen or something?
That's a very interesting idea, and that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't know how they could do it because, I mean, obviously it would be like a different act or something at the end.
Right.
But you'd have to, I don't know, you'd be forced to try to advance that last act a little bit more quickly,
Hmm.
and then you kind of decide what to do. It'd be fun.
It would be fun.
Anyway, what do you think here about the replayability?
Yeah, I mean, like I do agree that I find this one very replayable, but not for because of like setup randomization purposes. It's replayable just because like one, there are kind of like two different versions of the scenario based on whether or not you took the onyx clasp or not.
Hmm.
Um,
And the tokens,
and the tokens, of course, yes. I also think that getting out of the asylum always feels different to me, just because it's very variable in how many monsters are in the deck, how well you're doing if like the asylum gorger shows up, how quickly you're able to find Daniel's cell, like all of that really matters in actually getting out, and getting out always feels like you never know what's going to happen.
I agree. How does that help us make a ranking here, though, or rating?
Um, let's
Because it
see.
is it's very different, as you were saying, compared to some of these like eminently replayable scenarios where there's kind of a random objective or you don't know what order the cultists and Midnight Mask are going to show up. Because I still feel like I follow a script. I go to the uh, whatever it is, the one that's directly above, and then I go to the one to the left, and then I go hopefully spend all the clues, and then go to the kitchen, go to the infirmary, and then go down. I mean, that's just kind of, I don't want to say like there's an optimal way that you have to play it, and it's no fun otherwise, or you don't have a chance otherwise, but there's not really any reason to not do things in the certain order.
Yeah, I can see that. Um, I think that there's a little bit of flexibility because you never have to do all of them each time. And so, depending on circumstances, you might be like, "Oh, this time like we don't have to do the kitchen one because we did a bunch down in the cells," or this time we're running out of time so much that we have to leave out the garden to be the last one that we do. And the things I'm talking about, of course, are the things you have to do to escape the asylum.
Right.
Um, so like because you never have to do all of them, which ones you do decide to do changes how the scenario goes. Um,
Okay, here's a question. We didn't talk
mhm,
about player count in this one.
yeah.
You've played this one in four player. I've never played it in four player.
Ah,
Um, do you end up splitting the party where some people don't even bother to go to the basement?
that's a good question. I mean, usually the way that we play four player is we split up two and two. And if we find that like, some people need help, we like get the two people to come down to help them or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, And I'm trying to think. I think I do recall the other two people not necessarily having to go down to the patient confinement areas immediately, at least. Mostly because they're maybe up top and dealing with monsters. But I mean, at that point in the act, you don't need clues to advance at all. And so potentially the Cloovers, like their job is to go down there and like get victory. So maybe you go to like the infirmary and get the victory up there, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so like, yeah, it's not necessarily true that everyone needs to go down to the confinement area at the same time.
Okay, I can see how that could change things. I feel like playing with, either two-handed or maybe even three-player, it's a little easier to follow the script.
That's fair. Yeah.
I do find that a second, third, etc. playthrough that there's more to enjoy because you get some different enemies that pop out. If you get
Yeah,
the Asylum Gorger or not.
that's true. Yeah, there's
It,
there's a lot of variability on what monsters do pop out.
okay.
Um, okay, I think I'll start.
Hmm.
I think I will put it at a 4. It's not it's not entirely replayable, but I do think there's a lot in there, and I do really like the two different act structure basically.
I do like that too. Hmm. I got to think about this because the Return 2 is coloring my ideas a little bit too.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's a little, it's even more different with
Yeah.
the two versions. I'm gonna go a little below you. I'm gonna say 3.5.
All right, fair enough.
I do feel like it could have, man, that the crazy idea I have of the different places to escape from, I think would make it really interesting.
That would be cool. That like, I'm actually liking that idea. Like maybe oh you like one of the options you escape through one of the cells by like digging a hole.
Yeah, even something like that would be really cool.
Oh, and you know what? It changes what of the four, like what of the six ones you need,
Ooh,
right? So it's always a subset of the six, but it tells you which four of them you need, or maybe like which four of five of them. Like you don't need to start a fight for this one specifically. That'd be interesting. Wow. Okay.
I know. We got our like custom modders on the scene to try to fix this to
Yeah, we
make it
need a
even.
return to Carcosa.
I mean, it's such a good scenario already that this is like a minor issue. It's
Yeah.
just it would be interesting to see if they could have made it such that you don't just know eventually I need to be in the garden.
Yeah.
Because it does feel kind of sad with players who haven't played it in a while, or they don't remember, or they're new, where you're like, yeah, we don't need to go up that way. And it'd be cool if I couldn't say that.
That's true.
Yeah. All right. Next one is the fairness part. I think this one's really good.
I think so too. I think that I have always found that it is extremely tense, but almost dialed in almost perfectly. Um, I think that I don't know. Maybe it's because we are very experienced players, but I think that the pressure in the scenario is almost perfect. Like the amount of time that you get, the amount of enemies that show up, the obstacles that you need to overcome. I usually find like I get out at with one or two rounds left to go. Um, after getting like all the victory, of course.
Yes, of
Um,
course.
I do feel like potentially for new players, this one can feel like unfair because of the fact that they will just die. And I also think that a lot of new players don't go in with the expectation of if you die, it's okay to choose new investigators because not only did you both die, but you lost at least like, 10 to 20 experience that you just earned through the previous scenario. So it's like maybe we just start over and that can kind of lead to some pain points there. What
Yeah,
do you think?
I agree with you. I wish that they had kind of made it more clear that it's
You were going to die.
okay. No, not that you're going to die, but that it's okay because looking at the campaign as a whole, uh, there's a lot of XP in the very first scenario. There's very little in the second, and there's almost nothing in the third.
Yeah.
So you're missing out on the first scenario and in this one, if at least it's not a full party wipe. So it's probably okay to start over, but it feels bad.
Yeah. And
There's so
yeah,
much XP in the next three or four, though,
yeah, I
that it's
agree.
pretty easy to get back on the horse. But it's not a great feeling as a player to be like, I spent, some time investing into, building the deck, et cetera, getting to know how to play my character. I was just getting the hang of it, and then, sorry.
Yeah. I think also a lot of people see if their investigator is killed or driven insane as a lose state, which it is not. Like you're supposed to keep going if you do end up dying here. But I do think a lot of players see it that way and therefore declare that like, we have to start over because an investigator died, right?
And they might also feel like it's a failure on their part, like they made a mistake
Right.
and they have to sit with the consequences.
Yeah.
Maybe they built a bad deck. Maybe they, decided to take their time getting out. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that they need to telegraph it any more than you're in an insane asylum,
Right.
but I totally get that some people might not
Yeah.
sit with the resolution very well.
Yeah. So, okay, with that in mind, we are the players that we are, and
We are.
I'm gonna put it at a 5. I think it is one of the most like perfectly pressured scenarios out there. I think.
Hmm. I talked about this during our discussion before that the mitigation, especially with the monster deck, is really interesting,
Yes.
especially with the different tokens that may or may not be in the bag. But you can deal with the problems, and when they do show up, you should be able to deal with the monsters. I honestly think the possessed enemies that are uh, popping up during the first, not the very beginning, but the first third or so are scarier. They can really slow you down more than you really want to. By the
Yeah.
time the bigger enemies come up, I think you're kind of well suited for them. I'm still scared by them. Like pulling the Beast of Aldebaran as an
Yeah.
encounter card is crazy.
Yeah.
Uh, Spoiler: it will show up again later, but always as you say a mini boss. Yeah, but there's nothing here where I'm like, we just got screwed out of the scenario because something we couldn't do, something we
Right.
couldn't control.
Yeah.
So by all of that, all those points, criteria that we put out, uh, it's a 5. I don't really see anything that they could have done better. So I guess we'll just move on to the balance part, which is kind of a similar question. Though I did want to ask you again about sort of your team. I think again the flex is not as needed here.
I think not. Well, yes, but I think it can be still be useful because there are a lot of off actions that you can or need to take in this scenario. Notably, the actions on the locations to do the things you need to get out that are random willpower, agility, or combat tests
Mm-hmm.
that a flex could take care of to kind of make the other investigators more action efficient, I guess.
That's
Um,
true, but like with most of those locations, other than the kitchen, I think, you are basically going in there not knowing what the location is, right?
if you're going blind, sure, yeah.
Well, like you don't have a pocket telescope and you just go into a location. It says
Oh,
test
oh, oh, for
to
the
combat.
yes.
Yeah, the ones in the patient confinement cells.
Right.
Yeah,
But
you're.
there's also the garden, which is an agility test. There
That's true.
is
That's true.
well, I guess that's about it. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like I generally think that the fighter, probably Guardian, deals with the combat test, and if you don't have anyone to deal with the agility test, you just don't do that one.
Yeah, that's fair. However, I will say also the flex has a great um a lot to do when it comes to um enemy management because you don't actually have to get a lot of clues in this scenario. Like it's 3 per at the beginning and then a max of 4. And then the rest, the other things that you need to do are like yes, there are like if there are no clues in this location, you can test the thing, but
Mm-hmm.
maybe you just don't have to do those. So there's actually not a lot of clues you have to get in this scenario, meaning that the flex could focus more on the fighting part of it.
That's true. I guess the other part that I think about is in terms of the hidden weaknesses, only the people who pick them up can deal with them. Where I feel like the flex sometimes gets to do the double action, discard something awful from the investigator's threat areas and other campaigns.
Fair. You can double action get rid of a straitjacket
That's
for
right. That's
them.
the one you can do.
That is the one you can do.
That's the one you can do here. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I guess I'm thinking about the map. The map itself, I've mentioned this in the scenario reviews before. It's a couple of hallways with some branches, and going off on your own is okay, but ultimately you're not. There's very few places you can go where other people aren't going to come with you eventually.
That's true.
It's really just the infirmary and the kitchen, and if you don't know what's in there, then you know you might not actually want to be there.
That's true. Yeah. Um.
I've
All right.
I've often like stuck a main fighter in the western wing, I think it is, or the eastern wing,
Hmm.
and just sort of sit there as a turret.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is true. Yeah.
That's kind of fun. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think there's a lot that everyone can do, but I do feel like you have to be kind of good at all of them.
That's fair. Um. I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay,
What do you think?
I'm thinking about it. Um, yeah, I mean that seems right.
Okay.
It's good though. I mean, I think as we've talked about for this one, having action compression, but specifically movement as a like shortcut or safeguard makes this one way easier.
Indeed.
So if you don't have that, I mean, I think that's true of most campaigns that there's going to be one or two scenarios where the extra movement is so good.
Open gate on the garden, baby.
Just go up there, drop an open gate. go back down to the. No, you need two investigators to open gate, right? One investigator puts it in the basement. The other one goes up to the garden and drops another copy. Then you never need to go anywhere in between.
That's true. Or yeah, yeah, that's true.
Um, this is a 5.
Yes, I agree. There's flavor oozing out of the walls. Um, yeah, everything is so thematic. I love each thing that you can do, setting the kitchen on fire, starting a fight, inciting the guards, all that stuff is all super flavorful, and it's perfectly encapsulated by this like perfect climax because of how the monsters and enemies show up near the end. It's like this perfect sort of like experience. It's perfect. It's
It
awesome.
is. It is. And they don't always get it right, you know? Like
Yep.
some of the other scenarios where they're trying to establish the fiction, right? It doesn't feel perfect. This one, you know, the fact that they don't even put the possessed enemies in the deck for the first couple of rounds, like from a gameplay perspective, that's really nice to let you actually set up a little bit. But from
Hmm.
the flavor perspective, it's because you're, walking around the asylum just because you're a normal person walking around trying to find this guy, and then things slowly but surely get really weird,
Indeed.
and that's part of it. Like the mechanics really support the theme. So
Yeah. I
they
love
do.
like
Yeah, as I
I
say, they
love
do
like
more of that because they add monsters in. So at first they were adding in these enemies who are really part of the asylum, and then later it's these weird monsters. You're like, what are they doing here, right?
yeah, the monsters adding into the act deck is kind of like this. It's like this. It adds this looming presence of like, when are these gonna get spawned or shuffled in the encounter deck, and that kind of flavor is really good at evoking this, slowly consuming madness that's
Mm-hmm.
approaching as the scenario goes further. It's really awesome.
Yeah, and for the theme of the campaign, having this asylum is kind of necessary. I'm glad they did it. I know there's a lot of like difficulty in trying to do this in a fair way. I understand in the repackage they change some of the names of this stuff, and that makes sense to me too. But ultimately, it's all about kind of doubting yourself and what do you see to be real.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, we do want to talk about the return too, and we will do that in just a second. So if you haven't played the Return to, you might want to call things here. Otherwise, let's go ahead and do it. All right, we're back. There's actually a number of changes here, and they're all kind of in different chunks.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we want to handle first? Maybe the monsters?
Sure. Yeah. Instead of the other Byakis, I don't know what they're called, I forgot.
Screeching.
We Screeching Byakis. That's right. We get the Praying Byakis because this is the replacement to the Agents of Hastur set. Um, so yeah, these guys, they look fine. 2 fight, 3 health. But if you have 4 or fewer sanity, that is 5 fights and 2 evade. That's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yo, where's my victory point?
Yeah, I know. Oh my god.
I know why they did this, and it's mostly because of the following scenario, but it's a little annoying to not have a victory point where it was factored in before.
I agree. It's kind of annoying.
However, I think this enemy is really good. This is probably true a lot of the time that you only have remaining sanity 4 or fewer,
Yeah,
uh,
especially near the end of the scenario.
especially at the end of the scenario, especially in the other scenarios where this guy shows up. But it's also because of another encounter card that comes with it. Oh
Oh yeah.
no.
Oh god.
This baby,
The baby.
the sign of Hastur,
Oh
take
my
one
god.
horror.
Yeah.
Peril, which is not a big deal. Someone has to decide if you're going to attach this to the current agenda or the current act. I think the Peril's worse because you can't ward a protection this,
Yes,
basically,
agreed.
from if it's someone else drew it. Limit one per agenda or act. Thank goodness. Each time an investigator takes one or more horror, take an additional horror. This is the scariest encounter card in the game.
Yeah. In this campaign, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, in this
I,
campaign for sure. I've tried to play around this or, just somehow survive this. in addition to these guys down here, you may remember that they give you direct damage and direct horror. Guess what? This is 2 direct horror now.
Yep. Oh, look, this is also too hard.
Oh no.
Oh
Okay.
God.
They could have fixed this. It's just too mean. Like it probably should have been like
Limit
limit
once
once
around
per round or
or
phase
something.
or something.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
The math that you have to do to like figure out how
Oh,
much horror I'm
poor
actually
Calvin.
taking.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh,
Now, I in a future scenario, this is uh it seems to be not as bad, but it's actually just as scary there too. But you're just like desperately figuring out which of the um agenda or act is going to flip sooner.
yeah.
Oof.
Oof.
The other part of it that's scary is if it attaches to a final act or agenda, then it's there forever until
Yep.
you have a thing that can get rid of things in play, like Alter Fate.
Yeah. I do think because there are a lot of acts in this scenario. There are a total of 4 acts. One at the start, this one, and then the 2 last ones. So there
That's
is
right.
an opportunity to get rid of it. It's not like Light of a Forgamon, in my opinion, where more often than not, it's like there forever. But it is bad for sure.
It's just it's like doubling everything, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's each time, right? So especially with the FAQ that says that choose effects are separate effects, right?
Yeah. I don't think that actually occurs in this scenario ever again. But I'm not sure about
No,
the next one.
well, but even from your own player cards, right? So like Diana or something.
That's true. She would take 10 horror. or Sister
Sister
Mary.
Mary.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
But like where this killed me before was just other weaknesses that might be in play. So I had nihilism,
Yeah,
and
that's tough.
like there's and I think so it's not the easier standard version of the tokens, but the tokens here on the hard version. But this will show up in other scenarios on the easy standard. If you fail, take 1 horror, right? It's actually 2
Right.
in addition to whatever horror that you might have gotten from like a failure of an encounter card.
Yeah.
So, but it's in addition as a separate effect. So, bleeding wells or whatever that one is might deal you like 2 horror. Well, it's actually 3, and then if you fail the test, you get 2 more.
Right. Oh
So,
yeah. Tokens a separate effect, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that's tough.
yeah, it should have been like once per round or phase or
I
something.
agree
To
with that. Yeah.
anyway, that's how you get the praying Byaku to always have 5 fight and 2 evade.
That is true.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what else do we need to know about?
We got a new encounter card.
Hmm. Hey, another take 1 horror effect, right?
Take 2 horror and surge. Why not?
Mm-hmm. This isn't so bad. Is there just one of these?
Yes.
This is okay. I think you could
Yeah.
get something and just do it again.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder how often this might come up again. I rarely have seen it come up more than once. Like, I wonder if this should have had like Victory Zero, and then kind of like that Resentful Wilds in Forgotten Age return to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, I think it's fine because a lot of times you maybe have maybe you did more than the things you need to do, or maybe you can just if you lost one, then you could be in the garden just like I'll make the garden the last one I need to do, right?
Yeah, this one's always available.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately fine, and it's interesting because then you can't assume that you're gonna have the exact amount you need to get out by the time you need to get out. So I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These guys are here.
Yep.
Oh, Bleeding Walls is the return to. It was something else. Walls Closing In. That's the one that's in the base.
Yes, that's still in the encounter deck as well.
Right. It's still in there because it is part of the Unspeakable Oath encounter set.
Yep.
Yeah, this one's like not a big deal. This is the Shroud stuff.
Yep.
Um, it is only 1 horror. Oh, lose 1 action and take 1 horror. Or maybe 2.
Yeah.
Fragile Thoughts here, it's not as bad as Corrosion, but still as bad as it usually is.
Yep.
Okay. And the maggots are, I guess they can have Hunter. Did the Roach Swarms already have Hunter? I think so.
I believe so. Yes, albeit I usually just kill them immediately.
Yeah, they should just die.
They don't spawn anywhere else. They just spawn on you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I don't think that shakes things up.
No.
And we already talked about these guys.
Yep. I got the
Ultimately,
new
I think
axe.
the not moving, the one that says, you can't move more than twice a turn is the fact that it's gone makes it this one a little easier in some ways.
That's true.
Okay, new X, yes.
New axe. So yeah, now it no longer is determined by whether or not you took the onyx clasp or not. It's just about if you have more or equal conviction than doubt.
That's right.
Um, so that does mean that if you have more doubt than conviction, you technically could still have the clasp of black onyx, and this text is now in play. Um, all it
Cool.
does is it automatically evades them.
This is a different thing than before, right? This is not the enemy side of Daniel Chesterfield, right?
Correct. The Daniel Chesterfield does not show up if this guy shows up.
Okay,
He's
so he's
attacking you
got
guys.
4 base plus 2 per investigator health. So this is like way harder to kill than the
Yep.
original.
The original only had 4 health. That's
And
right.
the parlay here is not just defeat him,
Defeated.
right? This is
Correct.
just evade. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever dealt with. Well, maybe I have. I don't know. It's a really tough enemy, especially in the end. It is massive too. So
hmm I mean, he's going to spawn though, right? This is what happens when you flip the act.
it is. I might just run away.
Okay, you can
um.
do that.
Yeah. They also fixed it, or maybe not fixed it. I don't know. But now both versions of the act shuffle the encounter card, the discard pile, and each enemy into the encounter deck.
You're right.
That did not happen before with this
Hmm.
one.
Okay, so the other version is now you still get Daniel,
Yes.
and now you have the scariest art in the game.
Yeah. Jesus. This is like a thing from Dead Space.
Eh, okay, radical treatment is attached to him, right?
Yep.
Yep. And then you have to wheel him over to the infirmary and
Yep.
then test willpower or intellect 6.
Jesus.
And if you do have the control, if you do have the class with the black onyx, reduce this by difficulty by 3.
That's
That's
cool.
cool. Victory point.
Yep.
And if you don't do this, then
He's gonna die.
you're gonna die. So
Yeah.
you take 2 horror or maybe 3, and then if you don't put horror onto Daniel, you'll take a damage.
Yeah.
Still, yikes!
Yikes.
This is really hard.
Yeah, it's really hard. I don't know if I've ever actually successfully let Daniel live through this.
I've gotten I've gotten the radical treatment to the infirmary and gotten rid of it, but then I think he still died on my way out.
Unfortunate.
But you still get the victory point, so that's good.
If you got him to the infirmary, that's right.
Right.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
mean it's not too far away. It's like 2 locations. If you have some help, then you can make it happen. But
that's
I
3
think it's a cool little sub mini quest here.
Yeah, it definitely makes it harder.
It does. Now, does the scenario need to be any harder? Probably not. Honestly, the hard part here is the sign of Haster. It's not this.
Yeah. Yeah, because that means 3 horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are who can tank 3 horror every round, but
Jesus. You're uh, you're Diana Stanley with uh I've had worse.
an
No,
an endless supply of I've had worse.
or the other one. What am I talking about? Delay the
The,
inevitable. Yeah,
yes, that
that
would
would work.
work.
Yeah.
hmm
Okay.
Oh, I see. Yes, you can have
Yeah.
an endless supply of that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. What else is different?
I think that's it. The encounter cards are the same. Constance shows up.
hmm
Yeah,
Okay,
I think that's it.
that's a neat little addition. I don't.
Yeah, I like the clouded memory.
hmm
Uh, I agree that Sign of Hastur is really tough, but it's fun to me. um,
It always shows up at the time you don't want to.
that is true. And yeah, this one makes things very difficult. Either one, honestly.
I
Um,
like the Host of Insanity. That's kind of neat. I like the art here too.
it's true.
Uh,
It's another victory port to get. You
it
couldn't get that.
is.
Actually, I guess you could get that before, but um,
Yeah. I'm fine with this one. This is not too bad to deal with.
yeah, I'm fine as well. And ultimately, getting Daniel Chesterfield out is okay. Not getting him out is fine. He's only worth 2 victory, so you can get
hmm
1 for your penance if you only get this off of him, for example. So that's not bad.
I mean, you can also just, let him die and just don't take the horror, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And it will allow you to get out without going insane. Maybe
That's
that's what
right.
you need to do.
That's true. Yeah, ultimately, I don't think this one, and there wasn't really anything broken about the original, so I don't
Exactly.
think this one fixes much. It's a cool little addition. Makes it a little bit harder, but not excessively so for the most part.
Yeah. I agree though, in if they did in the return to change where the exit was, that would be really, really cool. And actually it wouldn't require that many new cards. It would have just required a different act, for example. Um or just like, put a horror on one of these locations. Now that's the exit, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if they ever thought of that or tried to play test it to, like, was it too hard for players if they couldn't anticipate it, right?
Yeah. I'm sure the reason it's the garden is because it's the furthest from the cells.
Yes.
So I mean, maybe it could be the kitchen, right?
They
Or
could
it
add
could
another
be,
location here or something.
yeah, like the uh something attached to the infirmary that also isn't like the guard outpost,
Yeah,
right?
maybe they could go out the window or something, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
another way out.
And then you could
Yeah.
also dig a hole down here. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We're gonna come up with our own cards, and you'll see it in TTS sometime soon. Not really, but someone else should do it.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for hanging with us for the past hour and a half
Ooh.
or so. It's not quite that long, but it's a rock star campaign, and this is a unforgettable experience that is central to it.
Yep.
So that's why there's so much to say.
Absolutely. Yep. It's so iconic. It goes outside this campaign and the game. Like literally whenever someone says Haster, I'm always like take a horror because of the ending of the scenario. It's like it's a perfect package.
And when people say the train scenario, you know which one they're talking about. If they're talking about the asylum,
Yep.
you kind of give people a
Yep.
nod saying, yeah, did you make it out? Or a
I
little
died in there,
story.
so yeah.
Yep. All right. It's a good rite of passage for this game and for the campaign as a
Yep.
whole. So we'll see you on the other end where we take a trip across the ocean to Paris. So we'll see you another week.